Hi, everybody. I'm Scott.
And I'm Luke.
And I'm Jonathan.
And this is the No Way to Hollywood podcast. Thanks for joining us.
We're really glad that you're here and we're able to keep going.
Coronavirus.
Yeah, and we're totally not in the same room because unlike last week, we are now not just quarantined, but actually locked in our houses, theoretically.
Yeah, so I'm really sorry about the quality of this whole thing. This is kind of my responsibility. And so this is something we've cobbled together using the technology that we have. And so bear with us. I don't know if we'll be able to get it much better, but we'll see how it goes.
Yep. Hey, Jonathan, you have any news about coronavirus?
Yeah, it sucks. No, so one of the more recent film things is that apparently Wonder Woman 1984, which was slated to come out this summer, this is one of the newest announcements that I'm aware of. They pushed it to August, which I find kind of fascinating because all the other movies are like Mulan, for instance, they're like, yeah, we don't know. We don't know when that's coming out. We're just not putting it out yet. So it's sort of the angle is, yeah, this movie will just release on Vudu, Theater Vudu or Theater Amazon Prime now, or we think it's a good movie, so we're going to let that wait and we're going to put that out later. And then you've got the everybody you've got people who've already put dates out. So Fast and Furious 9 said a year from now. Bond said November. But Wonder Woman is the newest one, like the most recent information. As things have gotten crazier and crazier, the newest piece of information is that they're saying August. They're like, we'll put it out in August, which of course implies that Warner Brothers thinks that in August people will be going to see a movie.
I hope they're right, because I'd certainly like to be going to movies by then.
Sure. Hope is great.
Well, on that note, we're going to take tonight to talk about a movie that we've actually all seen, and that is Knives Out. Gentlemen, let's start with some just generic thoughts. What did you think of Knives Out?
Knives Out reminds me that Rian Johnson's still my boy. Even though Last Jedi was like half a movie I hated and half a movie I kind of loved. Looper I loved, and he's one of my favorite directors in a lot of ways. And Knives Out is a great piece in my mind to exemplify that because it's super clever and really fun.
Luke?
Yeah, and I enjoyed Knives Out. A lot of people are like, this is a great movie. And I don't know if it's a great movie, but it was enjoyable. I liked it. And there was a ton of clever stuff. There's a lot to talk about with it, but I don't know if it's like great, but it was definitely enjoyable.
This is my potential argument for why I'd say it's a great movie. It's because the genre, the murder mystery genre. Tell me a murder mystery movie that comes anywhere close to that film.
Right.
You.
Oh yeah, totally. And that's where the clearness of it is really good.
And that's where I would say I am generally with you in the sense of like, it's not necessarily the best movie of all time. It's not that great, but the fact that out of an entire genre, I would put it at the top easily is what to me makes it a great movie automatically. It's because it sort of just said, hey, this entire genre, guess what? I did it better than anybody else did because I took all the tropes and did it. Well, that's what I feel like.
I think there's part of it that, to me, there's so few movies that have actually tried to be in that particular genre recently.
Sure.
And about the only other one that I can think of that I really enjoyed was the one with Anna Kendrick in it.
A Simple Favor? Is that thing you're thinking
of?
Yeah,
that one. Yeah,
I haven't seen that one yet.
And I actually thoroughly enjoyed that one. But it still wasn't necessarily the classic murder mystery. And I feel like what Rian Johnson chose to do with Knives Out is very much an ode to the classic nature of what that murder mystery is, right?
While flipping it all on its head and making two different genre movies in the same movie.
Sure. Absolutely.
Okay, so thinking of that, right? Like one of the things that Christopher Nolan is so known for is taking the genre film and pushing it. So is that something that Rian Johnson's done here?
Okay. First of all, You make the statement about Christopher Nolan. I'm just curious, what are you thinking of when you say that? Taking the genre movie and pushing it forward.
Well, and that's something that we've talked about, and I feel like you have a better handle on that than I do because genres aren't really my thing. But you've talked a lot about, okay, he's going to do the war epic, and he's going to go, and he's going to do the sci-fi, and he's going to go, and he's going to do the, whatever. So, like pushing it.
Nolan, what he does is he grounds, like, everything's realistic. He has all the practical effects and stuff right. And what he does is, like, the war film, for instance, for Dunkirk, I wouldn't say that, like, he's sort of reinventing it because he's doing his sort of. Dunkirk's a great example of what Christopher Nolan actually wants to do. The story's not really that important in a sense. It's there and the characters are there and, like, it is important, but he's sort of more interested in the construct of everything, of how it's all put together and sort of how to play on your perception of time and space in that. And he does that constantly, whether it's Memento, Inception, Dunkirk. He loves that kind of thing. And so if you want to say he's pushing the genre forward that way, sure, but I don't necessarily think about that as being a genre specific thing. It's just sort of his style. Rian Johnson, the reason that he sort of becomes more synonymous in my mind with genre stuff is because he constantly subverts. And that's the thing. He seems to understand the genre tropes well enough to subvert them, and generally in ways that are great. Sometimes they fall pretty flat, Last Jedi. But other times it can be fantastic, like Knives Out, where you're like, wow, you really did a great job of making the genre play in your favor.
And when it comes to genres, I really like Brick because it's the film noir, but like in a high school setting, and that's great. Like, I love it. So yes, he is good at taking those tropes and running with it.
Yeah.
All right. So beyond genre, Jonathan, why is something like Knives Out so great? Like, is it just the genre, or is there something else that he did that, kind of helped push it that way as well? Because I feel like we could make a great genre movie and still end up with a bad movie.
Well, I suppose that's sort of up for debate. I'm not sure. I mean, maybe the genre you choose. What I'm thinking about, and I'm going to just go ahead and say that in case you don't know, you haven't seen Knives Out, potential spoilers ahead, just so you're aware. Because to discuss this movie, I have to sort of get into some stuff that's revealed. What I think is great about Knives Out is he's very clever. And he's very clever in that he takes a genre that is, in my opinion, particularly stale after seeing it once. Because you're taking a movie or a story, it's the classic murder mystery, and what you expect is person is murdered, there are suspects, there is an inspector or a good guy character trying to figure it out. They will go through all sorts of twists and turns trying to figure out who did it, with lots of red herrings and different distractions. And by the end, you'll find out exactly what happened. The inspector will tell you all that. It'll be a nice, like, satisfactory, like, oh, now I finally know who did what, and the movie will sort of be over. And what Rian Johnson does is he says, yeah, we're going to start that way and have fun with the characters and all of that. And then what we're going to do is, in the, like, transition from Act 1 to Act 2, I'm just going to tell you what happened. I'm going to make it a crime movie, and I'm going to make it a suspense movie. My favorite thing is, there are two video essays that are really good in explaining this. There's a Just Right one where he talks about the genres, the two genres he uses, and there's the Closer Look. He talks about how much he loves that subverting of the genre and how he subverted it into helping the genre in a way. He weaponized the expectations. Yeah. Both those are great. But when I came out of the theater, what I thought about was the classic Alfred Hitchcock. I believe it's who talks about suspense versus mystery, and like a whodunit. And he said a whodunit is there's people talking at a table for a while. You don't necessarily care what they're talking about, and then a bomb goes off, and you're like, whoa! This is all this shock value, and then you wonder why was that bomb there, and who did that, right? And the rest of the movie is trying to figure that out. Suspense is. You show the audience there's a bomb under the table ticking down for 5 minutes, and then you have this really boring conversation at the table, and they don't know the bomb's there, but you know the bomb's there, and as it keeps going, you're like, oh my gosh, will they freaking find out what is the bomb? The bomb's there, come on, and then it blows up.
And that's where Tarantino is just great at that. especially in like Or Inglorious Bastards and stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Tarantino's a master of that kind of, something's coming and, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? Another way of defining it is suspense is knowing as much as the characters in the film know. So you don't know less than all the characters know, and you don't know more than all the characters know. You know the same amount as the character that you're following knows, which means you have sort of a play-by-play feeling with them. You're with them in everything they do. And that's what Rian Johnson does. He takes it from a situation where I would say you're in the shoes of some character with the information they know the entire time. You're with the inspectors at the very beginning, knowing what they know, which is nothing, and just trying to find out what even happened. And then he flips it and says, no, the main character is this maid or this nurse, and she is the one who killed the guy, but it was an accident. And then he made this whole plot to, because he's all into his writing, and he writes murder mysteries. So he did this whole plot, right? It goes from there. And from that point on, it's a suspense movie of, holy crap, can we outwit the inspector who always figures everything out? Can she get away with this? Because you want her to get away with it because it's like a total accident, and it's a freak crazy accident. So it's a totally different movie.
What I love about it is that Rian Johnson created this visual thing to give us something to latch on to make it extra hard for her to get away with it, right? So there's this thing that happens, and oh no, now there's a situation where if she's going to lie, this is going to happen, and we're all right. So how are we going to get around it?
That's the other thing is when I went in the theater and watched this movie, that was the first thing I thought was super clever, was that he took a character in a murder mystery with interrogations and said, if you lie, you vomit, which means everyone will know that you lie. And that was just brilliant. It's like a foil for the character, and how do you play with that and all that kind of stuff. And of course, he pays it off at the end.
Unlike Liar Liar, where it's just like he has to tell the truth, it's something that you can play with, and you can make it so that we are sitting here going, how is she going to get around it, right? How is she going to do it? Which is so fascinating because it's a visual thing. And then he plays off that multiple times, and I love that.
Mm-hmm. It's also just got a really fun sense of humor the entire time, and the cast does a really great job, and it's focused. Yeah. And that's the thing about Rian Johnson is, I mean, he could make another movie. The next movie he makes could be, as far as I'm concerned, a stinker. I mean, I don't know. He's not infallible. It's just that he's had a track record so far of when he gets to write his own world and his own characters, and from start to finish, make a movie, make a story. He tends to be very smart, very clever, and really kind of pulls things home. I don't know. He just does a great job of sort of bringing everything together and really letting everything play together tightly.
Yeah.
Scott, what did you think?
I will admit, I had one of my big issues with Knives Out was partially story related, and it was such a simple, okay, here's how your main character died, and it felt so just innocent, just tell the truth, it just is what it is, stuff happens kind of a thing, and it didn't feel like it almost deserved this super intense, why would someone be so upset that, oh, she accidentally gave too much medicine, maybe she's at fault, but kind of whatever. I'm not sure that it deserved the story didn't deserve what it progressed into for me. Well, that being said, I still really enjoyed the movie.
Okay, but since we're doing spoilers, it wasn't just that he died. It's that there's this whole familial issue and everybody getting cut off. And so there's this financial thing that actually becomes a thing, not his death. It's the financial aspect that's escalating.
Well, okay, hold on. If we're talking about, if Scott, if part of the thing here is you had a hard time on the sell of why would she keep it a secret at all? Why in that first moment, why would she go along with the plan? Why would she keep it a secret, etc.? I can kind of go with you there because the character's got a really kind heart and seems to be very truthful and honest. And so her instinct, for instance, is she makes this big mistake and she's calling the police and calling the ambulance because she wants to save his life, and she doesn't care what happens to her. She just wants to do the right thing. And he's the one that tells her and reminds her that if she does that, her family will be broken. is the whole thing, right? Like that's the motive, that's the personal motivation for her. Now, you can agree or disagree or say it's a good motivation or not, but I do think it is convincing enough for her to have, like, I think it's a personal enough reason where he cares about her enough, and it's sort of a relationship with him too, where he uses his relationship with her in a way to sort of like pull on that side of her and say he's the one that really architects it, right? He not only comes up with it, he pretty much pushes her out the door of that, and then she comes back in and he slits his own throat, and so she's sort of, in a weird way, I think she's compelled by him in a lot of that, and the personal draw, but like compelled by him almost like a dying request, weirdly. And that's sort of with the character, I think that kind of works with how she works in all of that. Granted, again, we know eventually by the end, obviously, that she didn't even give him the wrong medication. They literally just killed himself, right? Like, and that's the other big reveal of the whole thing is the medications were switched, but you actually knew which one was which because you're a good nurse and so on and so forth. And if you just did what we thought, everyone would be alive and be fine.
Right.
And I know for some, I've heard from another coworker, for instance, that like that's the murder mystery was not, the genre was not played enough for what they wanted. They really did want like a murder in a very traditional sense. They wanted suspects to be evaluated and try to figure that out. And as somebody who, I guess to some extent, isn't particularly concerned with and finds murder, like whodunits, to be generally good for maybe one movie viewing and then generally boring to me, at least after that. I find them pretty dull in a lot of ways. Right. I really loved what Rian did with it. But then again, maybe that's a strike against it, because if you love the whodunits, maybe this movie doesn't work for you at all. Maybe you're just as frustrated as all the Star Wars fans who are like, this isn't a Star Wars movie, this is something else. I didn't want that. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I see what you're saying. At the same time, it's just, when I look back on it, I feel like as I was watching it, I was like, okay, I'll go along with this. And by the end of the movie, I was like, okay, whatever. And, so those major plot points were kind of like, okay. But I will say there's a lot of other credit that I would give this movie as well, though. And one of the things that I think really caught my attention. Now, I do remember seeing this like in the Dolby Theater, so I had top picture quality. But I mean, one of the things that still sticks in my mind is how amazing some of the shots were that they set up, from a color standpoint, from a what's in the frame standpoint, from what they chose to show you. I thought it was pretty phenomenal. So I think the cinematography was probably one of the highlights for me of this movie.
That's interesting, because the angles and some of the lens choices just felt really weird to me. Like, it had this off-kilter feel, which may have been intentional. But what's awesome about watching it on a disc is that there is all this behind-the-scenes stuff, which I love. And there was some great stuff in there about how they shot it, how they made it work, and all that. And that was phenomenal. So yes, Scott, I agree. There's some technical genius back there. I'm pretty excited about. And I'm sad that with streaming things, you don't get any of that. I want that extra material. So I'm glad that we watched it from a disc. So that was good.
Sorry, just random thought, kind of going back to what you were saying, Scott, about hard sells or things that just didn't work for you necessarily. I will say that the hardest sell for me is the car chase and the way that car chase ends. Because not only is they even comment on it, right? Like, that was the stupidest car chase ever. And you're like, yeah, that was the stupidest car chase ever. And the fact that they, like, I guess it kind of makes sense with ransom and everything, but I was just sort of like, man, if that was really what was going on, why would she run? Well, she's under duress. Did he have a weapon on him? Did he like what was going on that she's in duress with? And so I don't know. Part of me just had a hard sell on that. So that's the one part that's a hard sell to me. Otherwise, I think it all works really well. But then again, I think I was just in for it. And as far as the shots and stuff go, it's funny because, Scott, you're talking about the mastery, and Luke, you're talking about how things felt weird to you. And quite frankly, I thought there's some pretty shots, but I didn't really notice much. Like, nothing stood out to me as particularly weird or off kilter or bad. I just thought it was giving me information quite well. It was doing a good job.
What's one of the great shots, or several of those?
So there is a shot when they're showing from the outside of the house, and it's up the dirt path that eventually they track like the mud into the house with. But you've kind of got the forest set on the sides. Here you've got your gate kind of down here in the frame, and the people kind of running through it, and then it looks up to the house. And just the way it's framed, I thought was pretty visually stunning to me at the time. And I thought it was well framed and showed you enough of what was going on to make you go, okay, what all of this information in this one shot do I need to remember right now? And, I'm coming into it as a murder mystery, so I'm looking for even the little clues here and there. But I thought it was pretty well shot in terms of that. I think there's a couple scenes, especially in the different rooms in the house, where either the lighting or the colors that they show, going back to our death scene, it's fairly well framed, and the color just kind of shows you. And I feel like it did a better job of storytelling than even some of the story itself did. So like those are a couple of the shots that I really enjoyed.
I like the editing and shot choices when it comes to the interrogations of the family in the very beginning. I think the order of information being given, the edit of it, the shot, and again, like where they put the camera for those first few family members, particularly as they're not only giving information there, and they're showing you already off the bat with those little flashbacks of how every family member is arrogant and thinks they were the one closest to their father. At least that's the way they're telling the story, and how the versions are already different, and you can see their mannerisms and how they think the acting is really good. But then you get, the way, like, if you're not looking for him, which in the theater it's a big enough screen that I was sort of aware and looking for him, but on a smaller screen, and maybe for others who weren't necessarily expecting it or waiting for it, Daniel Craig's character is there the entire time. Right, he's in that scene the whole time, but it's not until they want you to pay attention to him do you pay attention to him at all. He's in the back. He's not lit well. You can't see his face. He's by the piano. He's just not really. He's in the frame, but he's just not the center of attention. And then that first little piano hit, right, introduces him just the way they want you to have him introduced to, and then he's controlling the whole scene, right? And if you're talking about scene dynamics, whether it's writing or editing, it's a lot of times scene dynamics are about power and characters. So like what characters sort of controlling the scene, what characters got the upper hand in a sense, and especially in a movie like this where it's like the scenes like this where it's interrogations where clearly the cop seems to have all the power, and then maybe the person being interrogated or can switch things up and have all the power suddenly. But that you're doing all that kind of back and forth, and then suddenly, no, the person who has the most power in this room is back there by the piano. Because he did one thing and everything changed.
Yeah.
And even the way they do a shot that goes closer to the piano, like from the piano's perspective, towards both the cop and I think it's Toni Collette's character, and she's like, "Wait, I'm sorry, who are you?" Like, that's the first shot from that angle, and so you're back where he is, so you're sort of getting into his headspace, but you're also breaking the format. You're finally going over there. She's farther away. You're getting that feeling of like, wait, what is this? Right? I don't know. There's just really good. It's really simple in a way, but it's really thoughtful, really well done. It really makes you feel all those little tiny beats that really matter for a film like this to work, or really any film to work.
Well, and one of the things that I like, just pulling out one of the things that I caught on to that I really liked, was when she and Ransom are in the little diner, and they're both wearing a similar sweater, which says to you, like, these two people are on the same team. And that is really cool because it sets up something for this reveal later. And I liked it when I thought back, and I was like, that's really clever. I really like that. Scott, is there something you found really clever?
Well, can I just ask real quick, Ransom, anybody else like totally buy that he was going to be at least an anti-hero, if not one of the good guys, until they told you he wasn't? Because I totally fell for it. I straight up fell for it.
at the very beginning, I completely hated him. Then I fell for it, and then I was like, oh yeah, I really did hate this character. And that's good. I mean, like my spectrum on him in general just went from love him, hate him across the entire movie. I mean, in terms of that, I think they did a great job of manipulating the audience to, want to think a certain thing about the different characters.
But what's something you really like, Scott?
Something I really liked,
Or hated. Or hated.
or hated. You know, I think. I think that's a tough question to answer, and I'm not really sure if there was something that I was just beyond overly joyed about. Like, I love it. Apart from the fact that, um, yeah, big spoiler alert. There was something I caught very early on in the movie that I went, "Oh, that's going to be important later," and it was something that they used to kind of explain things at the very end. And it was the blood stain on her shoe, and it was like okay, we know she's going to get caught, and we know people are going to know that she did it, and it was kind of interesting because the detective at the very end kind of comes back and says, "Yeah, I knew it was you all along because of the blood stain on your shoe." And it was very much one of those moments of like, well, duh, that makes perfect sense. And it was the overly obvious thing that they kind of bookended, here's this murder that happened, here's the final reveal, and here's how I knew it. And it was a very, I mean, that was one of the satisfying things about the story for me.
I think the coffee mug's really great as a plant and payoff. It's used twice. Once the plant, one's the payoff, and it works both times to give you new information and to settle things. First time, yes, this is the kind of character who would own this mug. He is in control of everything, and that's how he thinks about himself and the whole world. And at the end, yes, she has inherited what he wanted to give her. So he's sort of still in control in the sense of what he wanted has happened, and she now, of course, has control, and everybody else doesn't get to have control in that juxtaposition.
And I like the plan and payoff of the knife. Some people just don't even know whether it's a real knife or not. I like that.
Yeah. Well, we are getting close to the end of our podcast tonight, guys. So I would like to move on to my normal question of what are you looking forward to watching. Before I start that, I would like to mention that I did get the opportunity to watch a movie that I was excited to see before the movie theaters closed, and that was The Way Back with Ben Affleck. I wouldn't call it necessarily a great movie of any stretch. I enjoyed watching it, but it was also one of those ones that I was kind of like, okay, if I had never seen this, it would have been okay. So in terms of that, I'm glad. My favorite thing about the movie is that it didn't feel like it sold out Hollywood style at the very end. It felt like a very real story. There were very real emotions in it. And at the end of the movie, I was kind of like, yeah, I care for this character, but okay, whatever. So, sometimes we look forward to stuff and it doesn't pay off as much as we want. Right. What are you guys looking forward to watching while we're still stuck in our homes?
So actually, I have something. It's because I watched a video essay and the person was like, you've got to see this movie. And I had tried to watch it like years ago because my sister was like, this movie's great. And I got 10 minutes in and was like, I don't understand this film. This film's awful. It's terrible. It's not funny. It's random. And that's The Man from U.N.C.L.E. And so apparently I need to give it another try. So someday I'll try and find time to do so and kind of get past the beginning and just try and get a feel for what this movie's all about. Because the first time did not work. So that's the one I'm looking forward to sort of trying again.
Okay. Jonathan?
I would just recommend that you revisit The Mask of Zorro. That is on Netflix right now, so you should generally have a good chance of accessing it, even in the era of coronavirus. And I wanted to bring it up because it's one of those movies that when I was younger, I didn't exactly grow up with it entirely, but when it came out, I was young and I really liked it. I still really like it. And there's actually a really great video essay from Patrick H. Willems where he just goes off on how much Mask of Zorro is awesome. And for the most part, I completely agree with him. I was like, yes, thank you, Patrick. I've loved this movie for years. Thank you for bringing that up in the era of Marvel and all this other stuff going on. That movie is fantastic. So you can get a hold of that and watch that. The only thing he doesn't talk about that needs to be mentioned that is also awesome about that movie is the score. James Horner's score is so good. And he uses like flamenco tap dancing as percussion for the score. It's awesome. Check that movie out. It's great.
I absolutely agree with you. That's one of the movies that I actually own, and I mean, I can't say enough good things. I loved that movie as a kid. I still love Mask of Zorro, so that's a great choice, Jonathan. I'm going to recommend 2 movies tonight, and these are 2 movies that I want to say made me laugh more than anything, like any other movie that I've seen. And the first one is Get Smart with Steve Carell. For some reason, I was just consistently laughing throughout the entire movie. Had a blast with it. It's a fun movie. For a serious like spy movie, it definitely leans heavy on the comedy. I enjoyed that and laughed so much during that movie that I had to ask my parents about the original TV series and, hey, was it that funny? Was it that good? Because if so, I need to go back and watch it. And my parents' response was, no. So, but the movie with Steve Carell is very, very enjoyable. The other movie
I second that.
Consistently laughing at in the theater is the new Jumanji, the first in the new Jumanji series. Is it Jumanji Welcome to the Jungle? It's another one of those movies that it's completely just about the fun and what's going on, but it had enough moments throughout it that I was just consistently laughing at that. I enjoyed it. And, part of the world that we're living in right now is very much hey, sometimes we need to just get out there and laugh at something. So those are my 2 recommendations. Get Smart and Jumanji, Welcome to the Jungle. So yeah, go out and see those.
Before we do our classic end here, I have to bring up one thing that I've realized little by little, something's been bothering me. Something in my soul has been disquieted slowly but surely as the coronavirus has gone on. And this has to do with something of very low consequence. There's the entire world's in trouble, and there's economy, and there's people dying, and that's all horrible. But when it comes to film and the losses that we're having with film and theaters and all this other stuff and movies coming out and things being going, something is bothering me. And that is, I have heard nothing about Dune. I've heard not a single thing about Dune. What's going on with Dune? Are we pushing it? Are we not pushing it? Is there going to be a trailer coming out? What's happened? Is the production over? I don't know. I'm pretty sure we're okay, but I need to know. What's happening, Dune? I know out of the 30 viewers we have, the people who make Dune are one of them, and you need to tell me what's going on. What's happening?
And then we could break that information on this podcast, and someone would have a reason to watch.
Breaking news on our podcast.
Or release a trailer. Just release a trailer. Just do it. Okay. Just make me happy. Just, trailer.
Let us release the trailer, maybe?
No, just release a trailer. Let me see the trailer.
All right, everybody. Thanks for joining us tonight. It's been a pleasure, and we'll catch you next time.
If we're still here and the tech works.
We'll still be here, probably. Bye.
See ya.
Bye.